Hi everyone, I am back for week 10 of the student vlog series, and I am reporting that the week went well and that I feel like this week has really started to, first of all, kick in that I only have 2 more weeks after this week, so that's kind of weird to say. I feel like at the beginning you're kind of like, wow, 3 months is going to be a long time at this new place that I know no one about or know no one. And then you get to week 10 and you're like, wow, I'm really gonna miss it here. And I don't want to leave. So I think that, I have been really blessed with this opportunity to come here and to get to learn and understand a little bit more about OT for sure. Because I mean, you always understand, in school, but then when you actually get out working, you get to actually see all those parts that you learned in school, and they say, "Oh, it will all come together. It will all fit together eventually." You start to see where some of that actually fits together. So it's pretty interesting to be able to see that. But I'm just here to say that it is going super fast, and you may think that, oh wow, 3 months is going to be a really long time, but it's not. It's not at all. So with that being said, I think that this week I've really been kind of starting to really take over the caseload for the most part. Again, I think last week I said my supervisor still takes some people that have a little bit more um in-depth injuries, a lot of protocol heavy type of things. But it's one of those things that I would rather understand and learn, and obviously not hurt someone in the same regard. But this week I've kind of started to really get in the groove of, okay, this is what I need to get from an evaluation. And this is how that evaluation moves into the treatment plan, which moves into, what I'm doing every day with each person. And then I see that progression to discharge. So I think that I've always understood the process, but once you're kind of doing all the steps yourself, when you're doing the eval, when you're doing most of the treatment, and then when you're, planning towards discharge, it starts to make a little bit more sense because you can start to put those pieces together. Sometimes it can be a little harder when you're picking up an evaluation from someone else, or you're picking up someone else's treatment plan, because it's good because it helps me understand more, like, oh, I see why they did this, this, and this. But then it's also harder because you didn't see that person from the very beginning, which my supervisor and I've had some good discussions about. When you pick up someone that they might have already been here for, say, 2 months, 3 months, maybe a lot longer than that. It's can be hard when you don't know what it was like for them prior. What were they able to do when they first came in versus what they're able to do now versus what you want them to be able to do. So I think that that's something that sometimes can take a little bit more understanding, but if you have a communication and a chat with your supervisor, be like, hey, like, what did this person look like when they first came in? What kind of things did you work with them on? What kind of things are we looking towards now? And take a look at their goals and be like, oh, okay, so we're looking towards doing more fine motor skills now. So let's work on some of that stuff. So I think that it's important to always go back to the goals. I think that that's one thing that sometimes I would forget. I would be like, oh, well, we're just going to do this. And then my supervisor would say, oh, well, why are you doing that? Why are you working on that? Is there a goal for that? And then be like, oh, yeah, I should probably look at that because that's one of the most important things. If you don't have a goal, why are you working on it? So I think that that's something that I needed to remember and to keep in mind. And I think that seeing the whole treatment process through has helped me a lot more, because now I'm seeing that connection. When I didn't do the evaluation, it was a lot harder for me to remember, like, I need to go back to the goals, which you would think that would be the first thing I would go back to, because, you know, I didn't do the evaluation, so I need to know what we're going to do. But I think that that's something that as a student, it was just kind of a learning curve for me to remember, like, you need to be working on something that you made a plan for. And, you can revise that plan in a progress note, but you also need to remember that's what your plan is, that's what you need to follow. So I'd say that this week, that was kind of one of those things that really like stuck out with me, and I kind of started to work on. But then I also say that I really started to kind of get more comfortable with just trying things. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm not really sure if this is going to work or not, but let's give it a try. Or yeah, you might be running most of the treatment sessions, but that doesn't mean that you can't ask your supervisor, hey, I'm thinking about doing this for this reason. Is there a reason, or is there something else that you would do that might work on this better? Or do you think this is a good idea? And, they might say, yeah, give it a try. Like, I don't know, maybe like we'll see. Or they might say, I understand where you're coming from, but maybe try this instead. I've found that this works a little bit better. And I think that that's something that as a student, I really value, because I don't want to just, skate through and just be doing something that's decent, but there's a better option. So if there's a better option, be open to that. And they're not saying, oh, your option was terrible. They're saying, hey, I have a lot more experience than you. And you can give your option a try, and maybe it'll work really well with that client. But then there's also times where it's like, hey, I know where you're coming from. I know what you're trying to get out of this. But hey, like, how about you use this tool instead? Because that makes it a little bit better. There was an instance at one point where I had an idea, I knew what I was going to do, and I brought it out. And my supervisor was like, I know exactly what you're going for. I know what you're trying to do. But she's like, how about you use this piece of equipment instead of, I think it was different tongs. And she's like, how about you use this one? This one's a little bit more resistive than the one that you found. And I just didn't even know that piece of equipment was there. So, those are the type of things where it's like, what you're trying to do. They know what you're trying to do. So work together and kind of collaborate there, and you can get the best outcome for your patients. So that's my week 10. Yeah, week 10.